Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the October 20th, 2022 special meeting of the Planning Board. Seeing we have a quorum, we'll call to order, and if we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you, everybody. There's a statement that we read, and each member of the Planning Board will respond to at the start of each one of our meetings. Does any member of the Planning Board have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest with regard to any item on the agenda? If so, please state so at this time. Richard?
Nope.
Nope.
I do not.
No,
Sybil?
that's fine.
Not for me either. Okay, we'll move forward with item number 2. We have a draft agenda before us. Does any member of the Planning Board wish to amend the draft agenda? If not, we can so approve it.
I so move.
So moved that we will
Second.
accept the agenda as issued.
Correct.
Seconded by Ron. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Aye.
Public comments is our third item on agenda items only, and seeing we don't have any visitors today, we'll move forward to our business at hand, which is the UDO audit continuation. Just for the benefit of those watching by YouTube, this is our third meeting in phase 2 of our UDO rewrite process. We started this entire process with phase 1 back in January of this year. I'm pleased to announce that we are somewhat ahead of schedule from the draft schedule that we worked out with Wes McLeod from the Council of Governments back in January. So that's certainly good news. Just for everyone's edification, we have a self-imposed 2-hour maximum time limit on these special UDO audit meetings, which we can extend only by unanimous vote of the Planning Board. Today, we resume at Article 3, the new format of the Article 3, Section 3.4, Interpretation of District Regulations. And before we get into the details, Chad, do you have anything from staff that you want to add or comment on as we start?
No, sir.
Okay, good. As we said, we're starting with interpretations of district regulations, which is now Article 3.4. It was in our previous format, or our existing UDO format that we use today, still use today, was 6.02 with the same title. I had no specific comments in 3.4.
I didn't have any comments either. I mean, what's really happened here, Wes, is it looks like you've just kind of done some word editing. I don't see anything in the changes or the deletions that change anything in it. I don't know if anyone else.
I do.
Okay, well, let's hear it.
I tried to look at this as I'm moving here. I bought a piece of property. Every realtor in town wants to sell me a piece of property. I bought it. And I want to know, what can I do in building this new house? Now, I guess perhaps your answer would be, well, your contractor will take care of all of that for you. But I thought, if I'm looking at this UDO, I've got questions. I mean, I've got like standards. Standards. What do you mean standards? And then permitted by right. What does permitted by right mean? And the standards are just used a zillion times, but they don't tell you where you can find standards. And then down in number 5, it has the UDO administrator shall consider the density and intensity. What does that mean?
So those are all great questions, Sybil. Permitted by right, if you look under 3.4A1, that's an administrative review and approval by the applicable authority subject to district provisions and other applicable requirements. So that means that basically someone is allowed to do whatever it is, say it's a single family house is permitted in that district. In that instance, that single family house would be subject to minor site plan, which would be approved administratively by the UDO administrator. If it's a major site plan, that's also permitted, right? But the applicable authority for that would be you guys, planning board.
So that's why you're using applicable authority as opposed to a person.
That's
a
right.
title.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And an administrative decision is, defined in your existing ordinance. It will continue to be defined in your ordinance, the draft one. The unlisted use item down there is new language on 34A5. That's based on case law that's come out that said in up until I believe it was 2019 or 2020, you used to be able to say that if a use is not included in your table, then it is prohibited. Well, now there's a lawsuit and said that, well, no, the local governments need to consider what is the most closely related use and then apply those standards. And so this language provides a mechanism so that the UDO administrator can request of somebody, you want to do what? Okay, then you need to explain to me all of these things, and I need to understand all of the implications and impacts so that I can appropriately categorize you based on what we have in place. That's what that language is there for.
Sybil brings up a very good point, too. It is complicated. Our existing UDO has some complexities in it, certainly, and it also has some omissions, or at least some things that are not clear. And what we're trying to do here is better format it, which I think will be a great improvement, but it'll still be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's any way that we as a town can make something so cookbook that every person that is looking to buy a piece of property would be able to go to a paragraph and read what they can do on that.
Yeah, no.
So that's why we hire contractors. That's why the worst thing is to be your own project manager, because then you're responsible for all the research and everything. So it is complicated, but Sybil brings up an excellent point.
Also, time frame. Should there be a time frame in here somewhere?
For what in particular?
How long all of this it takes, like, for the administrator to?
So that is all in Article 2.
All right.
We went over that.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
I
all
thought
in
we
Article
did,
2.
but there again,
Yeah.
I think this would be a good place to add that.
Well,
It's going to make it more complicated.
we'd be
You're right.
repeating it.
Yeah, we'd be repeating it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so, Mr. Chair and Sybil, you guys both have, I would love if these documents could be one page and a map.
Or a chart or something, yeah. Easy.
But it's impossible, and so that's why we have staff now. We have UDO administrator. You have Cindy also up front to answer those questions. And that's just, I don't know any other way about it other than just say we're not doing zoning anymore and go out there with a hammer and good luck.
One thing I had, Wes, in 3.45, Section 5.
Yep.
On the very last line, or very last few words, it says appeal by the Board of Adjustment. As I read that, we're not appealing, the Board of Adjustment is not doing the appeal. I would say appeal with the Board of Adjustment. But you obviously cut and pasted this from some other document, which I guess it would, you see where I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It says appeal by Board of Adjustment, and I think it should read in writing to the property owner and subject to appeal with the Board of Adjustment. Because the applicant is the one appealing it, not the Board of Adjustment.
Or to the Board.
All right, two, yes. Yes.
Right. No, that's a good point.
But
Okay.
the goal there is that just
See where I am?
Yeah.
making sure somebody is and this is language that I've written specifically and has been modified over time working with other local governments to make sure folks are comfortable.
Well,
But yes,
when you
two.
use the word by,
Yeah.
to me, I read it and I go, oh, the Board of Adjustment is going to come to me.
Sure.
rather than, no, I have to go to the Board
Yeah,
of Adjustment.
we put two.
To the board.
Yeah, two is fine.
Ron, you were going to make a comment.
Yeah. Well, I was just, some of this complexity, I guess, is because there's redundancy. And I know this is just the accessory uses, not the residential uses and non-residential. I assume those are going to be separate tables.
Yep. Well, they'll be in the table, but they're separated.
Because if you look at these columns, some of the a lot of this is just, I mean, like MR1, MR2, MR2A, and MR3 has exactly the same.
Can I
So
do
you
something else
could-
before we get to the
You
charts,
could
though?
collapse the table, but you can't collapse the table because
Well,
it applies differently at
other places.
other places.
Yeah.
That's what I thought where you're going
Yeah.
with it.
I'm not at the charts yet.
Yeah.
If we could,
Yeah.
at 3 point, does anybody have anything else with 3.4 that they want to comment on? With 3.5, I'm looking at the first couple of lines under 3.5A use tables, which is starting to describe the use tables. It just to me, so it reads better, I think the additional use standard should be plural. It isn't just a standard, it's standards. Now, maybe I'm splitting hairs here, Wes, and that I don't want to do that.
Sure.
But just reading the first couple of lines, it to me reads better. It's not an additional use standard, it's an additional use standards. Now, we don't need to change it unless you think it adds to it.
If it's unclear, we can add an S there. It is a particular use has a particular use standard.
Standard, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but then there's supplementary regulations that
So
feed
we're-
into that.
We're renaming supplemental regulations to use standard, which is a more customary way
Okay.
to address those.
I mean,
Well, but we call it,
in
we
this
have it as
particular-
S in the table, in the table of contents.
That's right. It's still S, but
Never mind, I'll
Yeah.
retract my
Okay.
thing.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I
I'll
was
cut
gonna
you
say,
off, Ron.
in each one, there's only one. Now, I don't know if on the further
right.
down, there may be more than one. That would make it.
So some uses they may not have a use standard,
Right.
but there are some that they have a particular use standard that's
Right.
applicable to it. It's based on the use.
Okay.
so what we're saying is that, because here's where the confusion come in. Okay, here is the standard, and if I'm only required to submit to one, and then there's another one, it's confusing.
So let's just talk just briefly about use standards, and
okay.
in the accessory uses, everything that was given to you for your last homework, every single one of those uses has a separate item that you must address. You're going to get some material today that there are uses, they're just permitted by right, no additional standard that's specific to that use. They still would have to comply with parking, landscaping, all these types of things
Right.
that we're calling development standards. But use standards are particular to that, whatever that use
Okay.
is, and they may be different. For example, an ice vending machine, you're going to have some things that are different to apply to that than, for example, a multifamily structure where you may have common area. These
But
things.
what I'm hearing is each particular application will have a single use standard unique and devoted to it.
Not all of the uses, but yes, if there is one listed in that last column that says use standard, it is unique to it.
Okay.
And formally, they were referred to as supplemental regulations.
Yes.
Now they're just called use standards.
Standards, okay.
Which is
good.
which-
I had a question with 3.5B Bravo, which is
Sure.
talking about prohibited uses.
Yes.
A was basically permitted uses.
Yep.
Under 2B Bravo,
Mhm.
in the first sentence, we're talking about you cannot manufacture, you cannot process, and you cannot fabricate acids. What about bulk storage? This would allow me to buy 55-gallon drums of acids and store them.
We've got we can put in bulk storage of hazardous materials, although if I recall in your existing ordinance, there is some provisions that allow for that.
I didn't see that. I was doing a
Maybe I
word
was
search on
mistaken.
it, but it could still be there.
let me. But the intent for you is we don't want to store.
We don't
those.
want them there.
Yeah,
I mean,
we don't want to
yeah,
store.
I don't
yeah.
want you to be able to make them there, or
Yeah.
fabricate them there, or manufacture there,
and not store.
and not store them there
Yeah.
either. It's because the purpose is we don't
So
want them there.
The manufacturing process and or fabrications in that phrase should be added and storage. So manufacturing process, storage, and fabrication.
Yes,
The word storage may need to be in that first line.
Okay.
yes, and that's exactly where I put it, right before the word "and."
Somewhere in there.
And well, I think that we just need to be careful about.
What I was thinking about is we have some very large swimming pools here,
Mhm.
and swimming pool chemicals could be construed as an acid, and they do need to store them there. So I was
Yeah.
hesitant.
So in A, the manufacturing, processing, fabrication, and/or bulk storage, you're aware that that's in there.
Yes,
Ammunition, explosives, fireworks, gunpowder, jute, or matches. So if there are a particular set of items that you, from a bulk storage standpoint, that you feel like should go into A as well, that you know,
oh, I see where you're going.
yeah.
I thought it should be in both those cases because I didn't like any of them.
But
It looks like A is mostly explosives.
Yes,
A
B is corrosive.
extremely, could be detrimental if something were to happen, right, in the perimeter. If someone is storing a bunch of paint on their property, I don't. We start going down a fine line. Well, how much paint should you?
Well,
yeah,
see,
yeah,
and the Department of Transportation has placards for their vehicles
Yep.
that are on the road, and
That's
that's
right.
so that emergency response people can
Yep.
read the placard and know
Yep.
exactly what's there.
right,
There's some things you don't want to put water on, other things you do.
right,
And if they were to show up to a building here in town, it doesn't have to be placard because it is not
right.
being transported and it doesn't fall under DOT
Yep.
requirements.
Yep.
So I just don't want our emergency response people to respond to something, not know what it is.
Right.
I'd rather not have it there.
Yes, and I mean, I doubt we don't have anything. Nothing is here in town at present, and the town doesn't
Swimming
even.
pool chemicals
doesn't
were
even
all,
have it
and
in-
fertilizers for golf courses were really the only two things that I could see that they would have bulk storage requirements for.
Okay.
So,
Right.
Well, we can move everything except those from B to A, right?
I mean, we can
and
com-
write B as just as
we
swimming pool
can com-
chemicals
we
and
can combine them all.
landscaping fertilizers in B.
Yeah.
Because we're saying in B, you can't make it, but you can
Yep.
store swimming pool chemicals
that would be good.
and landscaping fertilizers, but all this other stuff, turpentine varnishes,
That's a good
move
idea.
from B to A. That you can't make them, process them, but you can't store them either.
So
Bulk storm.
The other thing is that the building code, the commercial code, gets into storage limitations and all that within a facility, depending on how it's classified as well. So keep that in mind. That's also regulated by the
Yeah.
North Carolina
Okay, I
Building Code.
didn't know that was addressed there specifically, though.
Specifically, especially when you come to paint stores, there makes limitations on that.
Mhm.
When it gets into your high hazard classifications. I mean, if you want me to bring in Kerry, I can get him to
No,
speak on that. But
it's
the building
I-
code does get
you
into.
know what you're talking about. That's-
Yeah,
Okay.
the building code does get into a little bit of that.
I really like what Ron just said about taking everything from B and moving it up and adding it to A, and then B just saying something about not having bulk storage is a no, but talking about swimming pool chemicals and fertilizers for golf courses in B. Now, maybe you want to think about that, Wes, because that could be complex. I don't want to bring up cause other problems. But-
to some degree, it sounds like what I'm understanding from the board is you all don't want to allow bulk storage of hazardous materials.
Period.
Period.
Period. Right. So we just need to make sure we're
And if
clear.
they want to, they can go to the Board of Adjustment and get a
well, they
dispensation.
No, they couldn't.
they couldn't, right?
Go ahead.
Because that would be a
This is a prohibited use, right?
yeah. So it would be a use variance. So they'd have to request to modify the ordinance through text amendment.
Okay, you're right.
So
Yes.
Yeah.
Those
Well, I
two
don't see that
things,
as a
and the
problem.
other thing we need to confirm is, I want to make sure that we're not creating an issue, for example, for our automotive facilities that may store oil.
Do you want to take
on
this
site.
under advisement?
I will take it under
And I'm
advisement.
going to write
yeah.
I mean,
here.
clearly,
Yeah.
well, yeah. But basically, I think the thought is to some of these things that clearly
Pull them
animal
up, pull them up
byproducts,
into
right?
pull them up.
Chlorine. I mean,
Yeah.
that we want not bulk stored either.
Right.
But knowing that, like you say, pools, people who maintain pools might have some storage. People who maintain golf courses or large landscaping would have
Yep.
some. So basically, make the A list longer and the B list shorter.
Got it. Got it. All right.
And I guess the last, I mean, seems like a fairly comprehensive list that's based on knowledge of what is out there. I mean, we haven't missed anything, have we?
That's, I mean,
Well, we always.
well, I mean,
Good.
this is
Sounds like the answer is maybe.
well, you can always miss. I mean, we could have a list that's 10 pages long with every,
Okay.
potential material, but in general, this
This
encompasses
is the standard comprehensive
yes,
list. Okay,
yes.
great.
And that also goes back to 3.45,
Yep,
that
that's right.
if something's not in there, I have to be able to find the closest use to apply it.
Okay.
And it could fall in this prohibited.
So it gives Chad some leeway in terms of. Okay, great.
Can we now go to the table? 3.1, is that okay with everybody?
Yes, sir.
I had a question about cemeteries and mausoleums.
Mhm.
And it's been a couple weeks since I did this, but CR1 does not have a PS next to it. And I think it should. And the Mud District is a PS, permitted or special use.
Was it before?
Do we really want a cemetery in the Mud District? And
I believe the reason being is that you had churches that were permitted in the Mud District, which also permit cemeteries.
they link together?
Yes, that's how you
Okay.
have it in your current ordinance, which is a little funky, but
Well,
remember
know
this
if
is
it's not.
accessory to. It has to be accessory to something.
Something else. It can't
Now-
just be one on its own.
Yeah. Now we'll have it. We will have it as a principle also when you get the non-residential standards.
Okay, so that it would be different if it stood on its own, it'll be in a different list.
That's correct.
Okay,
Well,
never mind then.
Cemeteries were PS in CR1 in the old table.
Well, and that's why I put a circle there with a question.
I'm looking at my version of the old table.
Yeah, I agree with him.
Yes, it is. It is in CR1, so we can put that in CR1.
Okay,
And so, but it is in what you'll get today. It is not allowed as a principal
as a
use
principal use.
in the Mud District.
Okay.
In the Mud District.
All right.
Okay.
And it's not allowed as a principal use in MB1 or MB2 probably either.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yep.
all right. That answers my
Yep,
question.
yep.
I was confusing principal with accessory.
Yep.
Okay. A quick question.
Do you want to have these in CR1? Sounds to me
Yes.
like you do. Okay.
Well, there's no reason to remove it.
Okay.
I can't think of a good argument to undo it.
Okay.
From what we already have, unless somebody else does.
No. When the table block is blank, what is that? Is that
It's not
not allowed.
permitted.
It's not allowed.
not allowed? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yes, it's not allowed.
And just for the record, staff would love to have them left blank instead of with X's or no or anything else like that. That's acceptable.
Okay.
It does state that someplace, right?
Under B1.
Yeah, if it's not
B1
if it's
if
not
it's
any of the other ones, it's
Yes.
no. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I saw a use table the other day looking through some other stuff, and it had wherever there wasn't a P, a PS, an SS, or an S.
X's or something.
Yeah, it had X's everywhere. and it just makes for an eye cross
No,
at
you
night.
can't read it.
Yeah.
Under docks, piers, gazebos, bulkheads, da 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 da. I thought it confusing to combine the word gazebo with docks and piers because we generally, as a town, consider gazebos to not necessarily be on a pier or in concert with a pier. A gazebo can be a little backyard thing you have. We have a gazebo at our town parking lot that is nowhere near a pier or a dock. And so to have that on here, it's kind of saying you can't put a gazebo someplace that would be reasonable to put a gazebo.
So should we get rid of the gazebo?
I think so. If somebody wants to put a gazebo on a pier, then that falls under the pier.
Got it. Sounds
So-
good. That I'm
Yeah.
fine with that. And I've marked that out on the use standard
Is
as
it in
well.
the, yeah, it's in the use standard, got to be
Yep.
taken off too.
And I would say that a gazebo for a residential use would fall under the accessory structure
correct.
use residential. Just clarifying that it's
Mhm.
still in there. We're not removing gazebos from this thing entirely.
Should 3.6C then say that? Or is it, because it's just generic, it's
it
fine?
was
Just
yeah.
generic.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Mhm. Okay.
All right, as we continue on with 3.1, table of uses.
I marked, well, I jump ahead to the next page, I guess.
Can
I got-
we do that in order then? Because I still have something on the chart.
Well, I'm still on the chart too.
All right, okay,
But
go
on the
ahead.
second page, we call out solar energy systems separate, 3.6L.
hmm
Okay. But there are other alternative energy systems, such as wind, that we don't include.
That
Should we have of?
I would not allow.
Now, I know
You want
everybody
a
has.
windmill in your back.
Well, but
in your backyard.
there are small vertical spiral windmills
Yes.
that you
Yes.
can purchase. Okay, that would fit next to your house. You know, they're not. I know first thing that pops into mind are giant things, but with the giant propellers on.
Sure.
But there are other small vertical spiral.
I was not aware that typically it would be a principal use on a large area windmill farm type of situation.
But this is an accessory use.
That-
So
that's
I
why-
understand principal use,
that's why I don't.
but we're
that's why it's
saying
not in
we're
there.
saying here we're allowing solar systems, and we have some guidelines on there. You know, roof mounted solar, and in the guidelines, I guess if I want to stick there, we don't talk about wind spec there. Is that somewhere else? The 130 mile an hour plus wind resistance for that?
Win-
Is that in the state code?
That would be building code.
So
That'd be
that's
building-
in the build.
Yes,
That it has to conform to the wind.
that's right. If they put it on your house.
And then it also says in two ground mounted solar systems shall be prohibited.
Yes.
Why? And
Well-
why don't we allow it like in F1?
You can do that if you want, but what has occurred with some of these and has been problematic is where you've got say there's two houses next to each other and somebody puts a ground mounted one and somebody's sitting on their back porch and they are getting basically a suntan in December because
Did he heat your house? Okay.
because of the reflectance
Also,
of the
But AF1,
Wouldn't
you're
they-
talking about an acre.
Wouldn't they exceed the height limit?
No,
Allowed
that's
They're-
a roof mounted.
the-
Not necessarily.
Ground mounted ones.
ground
also.
mounted would or
on the
typically
ground.
They're less
You
than
mean
10.
what? They're going to be 5 feet tall? Or
Yeah.
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 They,
Really?
that, yeah,
They're just a
you-
flat.
I've never
Solar
seen that.
farms
I've never
today are
heard of
probably
that.
not over 10 foot tall.
Right.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is we prohibit them all, but in my mind, we have AF1,
How do
which is
we,
a 1 acre
Sure.
lot site.
But you still potentially create the issue with a neighbor next to you. But you guys can allow it in,
Oh, okay.
in AF1 certainly.
Oh.
That's
Well,
that's
it
a
seems
lot.
like there's a general
it is
a general
it is-
push incentive for alternative energy sources, and we seem to be there. That line seems to
if we don't address it, can't an applicant just go to town staff and get a ruling on it based upon the similarity of
That's
solar?
right. That's
solar?
why we need to have it in here. And you don't if you don't have it in here, then if someone came in and said they want to put a solar array in their backyard, it would basically have to be regulated as an accessory structure and it would have to be allowed. If you all want to allow them in the backyards or in somebody's in the ground, that's fine. I can tell you from experience, it has created issues in other in some other local governments. But
Well, the concern is, unfortunately, in this area, most of the housing has not been built with a sensitivity towards which way is the roof pointing.
but
So there are going to be
that's
people.
a different thing. That's
Yeah, I know, but there are
that's
going to be
solar.
people who might want to avail themselves of solar energy where the roof is not going to work.
that we're not saying you can put these on your roof all day long.
That's not the
But
question.
we're
The
the-
question
point
is he wants,
that
Ron wants
I may
wind.
have a roof that's
Solar is allowed.
not south facing, and
Well,
if I put, if I
we've prohibited ground mounted. It
That's
says
what's
in
in
number
there.
2. on the-
ground mounted is
It says
prohibited.
ground mounted solar energy systems shall be prohibited. Not in the table, in the standards.
yeah,
That's right.
So in other words, if you can't do a roof mounted,
yep.
and he answered my question that the wind standards are in the code,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, that
Yeah.
someone can't put up a
Yeah.
roof mounted solar system that isn't good for 130 or whatever the code is. I'm assuming it's at least 130.
150.
You guys can take that out.
But
I
we-
will provide my warning, and then it's fine.
But
I don't- it
we've,
doesn't matter.
with that line, we're prohibited across the board. We haven't said my thought was prohibited in either certain districts, which are the smaller lots.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you've got a 10,000 square foot lot, you probably don't have a good spot to put a. But if you got a lot AF1, you got an acre, and you don't want it on your roof, or your roof ain't facing right, which may be unlikely, or you just don't want it
So
on your
you're
roof.
saying put this in AF1. That's what you're
Or-
asking for.
Or I'm asking for or thought on this line 2 in the standards. You
Yeah,
could
I
say
mean,
I jumped ahead, but since we're on that line, I'm asking questions about this particular line. I brought up something in the standard that applied to that line at this time. So is that too strict by saying ground-mounted solar energy system shall be prohibited?
Point to where you're reading.
It's on page 319.
319.
It's the section for solar, which is
yeah.
L2.
And Ron makes a good point. I know where I lived in New York. I lived right behind a large estate that was, and the house was all shaded in beautiful pine trees. For him to get solar, he would have had to cut down all these trees. So he put a ground-mounted solar panel in an area of his lawn within setbacks that had,
Yeah, we
8 to
could-
10 hour solar
Can,
exposure.
can we deal with this when we get to it? And I'll put an asterisk so we
Yeah.
don't.
But I guess we are at it. If we're on that line of the table, we're on that use standard.
Yeah.
Okay, they go together. I mean, just because it's on a different page. I mean, talking about, just like we talked about gazebos, we had to take it off the table and then go over here and scratch it off the use standard too. So
But is there wording that you think is appropriate that we don't remove?
I
We
think,
don't mandate. We don't eliminate ground mounted, but we put some other wording in there that makes it.
my first thought was to prohibit it except in certain zones. AF1 came to mind
Okay, because of its size of the lot.
because of the size of the lot. And I'm kind of open for discussion on what other thoughts were.
Yeah.
Without-
prohibited in
Or
MR3.
they could say that this is the way everybody's doing it, and it
Well,
doesn't.
no, I mean,
I understand the point. Now you got to it could have to be within the building lot, obviously, lot line, or the building setbacks or something.
I mean, I guess, it's up, if you guys really want to allow them, I would just recommend, putting a separation distance from them, from an existing structure,
Like 50 feet?
Wow.
yeah, at least, probably 100.
'Cause what you're doing by that is basically eliminating it everywhere except AF1.
Yeah.
Or unless somebody has a huge lot somewhere else, which I don't think they do.
I
Right.
don't think they do either.
So that,
Well, I
I'm-
guess what's the
Well, we're taking coaching from you because you've been burnt by other municipalities
it
situations.
has created, yes, there's been 2 different instances that were, it was a very big problem. And it's a festering sore in those local governments because they don't have any mechanism to fix it because they allowed it. And so it's there.
The other thing you've got to think about, I think if I'm not mistaken, AF1, you've got lots on water. So you also have to talk about these things being built not to block views of waterway, lakes, marshes, golf courses, these other things like we do with fences. So you're looking at adding those standards in there too, potentially, because these things can get what, 5 to 10 feet
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah.
So there's the other part. I'm just giving you all the facts to be able to make the best decision.
I'm
It-
not for it. I'm not.
Well,
for
I
it at
think it
all.
has a point, but that Richard and Ron have brought up, certainly, it's clear.
Yeah.
There's a need to address it. My problem is, I don't know how to address it without causing other problems, so I tend to be against it, like Sybil.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel pretty strongly about this because this was successfully done in the community that I was in Newark, in New York.
On the
There's
ocean?
I'm sorry.
On the ocean? Were you in a
Yeah, no, on the
neighborhood?
Hudson River, yes. So there were piers that had, in fact, the boating club, an institution that had been there for 200 years, took a portion of their pier and put solar panels of it so they could power, so they were completely independent from the grid, which, by the way, has some advantages if you're in a hurricane and the grid goes down. You at least have some resource to power up food storage, other things. So this is, to my mind, I get the concern. You know, I don't want to see it from my house, but I think we need to find a way to limit.
That comment there is exactly hit the nail on the head. You
Right.
don't want to see it from your house. And
Well,
so,
I know, but
I
well,
hate
yeah.
to say it, but people are
Yeah.
going to have to understand that if you're not going to commit to renewable, we're going to keep buying oil from the Saudis.
so that
All
right,
that's
that's a
a
whole
whole
That's
other
a whole different
conversation.
thing.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
If
But-
Yes,
you
it
don't
is.
solve this problem locally,
All I'm saying is the word prohibited
needs to come out.
And well, I guess if some, let me ask you this: if we leave it this way, and say somebody does have, I'll just use this example, a fairly large house on a big lot in AF1,
Sure.
and because of whatever reason, trees or something, they would like to put
Yep.
a ground-mounted, so maybe let's say somewhere. Is there another route? Are we
They-
giving them
they-
another route
they
to take
could-
that
they
they
could
could get it done?
They could request a text amendment.
So they would have to come back for a text, which would be we'd be back here doing the same thing we're doing
Same
now,
thing.
Yeah.
discussing how to adjust this.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
I
it's not
don't-
a site-specific thing. Hold on. Why can't we do what Wes suggested? Would that satisfy you in 2? Ground-mounted solar systems shall be positioned a minimum of 50 foot from an adjacent residential structure
Or 100 foot or something. whatever.
but some dimension that leaves that door open.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If there's, there
So-
might not be a lot of these, but if
Right.
one comes up,
You could
then we're
set-
facing the same discussion
Sure.
3 years from now.
No, that's
If
fine.
we can address
All
it
right.
now. we should.
I don't know that
What
you
about
have
this-
any of those today. You could put a minimum acreage threshold of a half acre or 1 acre, and then you can do a separation distance.
Why don't we do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
If
And
that
then-
would satisfy you two,
Yes.
let's do that. So do you want to make that note in advance of getting to that point?
Great.
Half acre and
Thank
100
you.
feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do want to share one thought because obviously people kind of went, oh, committed to the idea that you have to think globally and act locally. This may seem like a minor thing, but in the grand context, at least in my mind, it's very important. Thank you.
Instead of 100 foot from a residence, can we say from the lot line? And I'm saying that because it could be a
Yep.
vacant lot, and then
Yep.
somebody
Yeah,
would be
lot-
restricted in where they could put their house because of something else
lot,
that.
lot line's more defined because it's
Yes.
defined, right?
But-
by survey.
If it's 100 feet within 100 feet of a residential lot line,
It's a big lot.
what I'm saying that that would preclude most. So you're saying you can't even be within 100 feet of your property line.
I would have agreed with 50 feet, but
50.
it's
Yeah, I think
If we're
50 is
using a
fair.
lot line, maybe 50 is more
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah.
Is that enough? Or 75 or something?
Just that it shall be set back 50 feet from your
yes.
property line.
It-
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
setback from the lot line will
Yep.
needs
Be
to
no
be a
less than
minimum.
50 feet.
Yeah.
And then back to my first question, we did only solar. Should we have something concerning wind or just say, forget it, don't need it?
We can. I'm not.
or
I'm
other?
not familiar with roof-mounted wind energy systems, so
Well, many of them are pole mounted, so it's basically a straight pole that goes up in the air, and then there's a cylinder at the top.
Can't we deal with that if the situation comes up?
Well, that's
Can't we
say-
deal with that on our own? If somebody
Sure.
could into Chad with a
it
reasonable
would be
request on
akin to a
something,
flagpole. Yeah,
it's,
if something else would cover it, pole
yeah,
mounted or something.
yeah. I mean, accessory structure, flagpole.
and then we'll better understand
Yeah.
the technology
Yeah.
that and what is required.
I don't see those as having as big of an impact as potentially these have created. That's why I wanted to have them addressed in
Right.
some way.
Under dune walkways, can I move on?
Yeah.
Under
Yep.
3.1,
everybody.
the top of, you're welcome, under page 314, moving in order. Under dune walkovers, the only place that I ever saw a 1-to-4 ratio, and that's been removed from here. I'd see your cross out in the under dune walkovers in the chart. Page 3-14 on your
Okay.
homework assignment.
Yeah, it's
You see the chart?
Yep.
Table 1?
Mhm.
We've crossed out the 4-to-1 ratio of 4 lots to 1 dune walkover. The only place that exists right now is in CR1. I don't believe it exists on BR1.
Pete.
It's in
Palm
the-
Cove. Palm Cove, I think they need permission.
That's Palm Cove.
So,
Is that something?
It
Yeah,
still
that-
says
that-
4-to-1.
Oh,
It-
that's,
it-
okay.
That is Palm Cove.
so it's been
It's
put
CR1.
in the use standard.
It's in the use standard.
On 316. The reason why you want it out of the table is because someone would come in and say, well, I want to just put a dune walkover for one lot. And Chad would have to say, well, that use isn't permitted. I have to go the most closely related, and the most closely related is 1-to-4. And so it would have to be allowed. So we have to say dune walkovers in general, and then in the use standard in 316 to say that it's only 1/4.
Yeah, it's in the use standard.
Okay, all right.
Does that
So you
make
took it
sense?
out of here because it just didn't need to
So
be
there's
here.
a lot of things that you'll see that where they're
Okay.
trying to put use
Yeah,
standards in the
okay.
table, got to get it out of there, and it's got to go somewhere
But
else.
the only place that you can put it is on BR1 or CR1. And CR1 is Palm Cove for everyone's edification.
Yes, that's in there.
Had one.
Okay, but
Good.
you've added it now to BR1 just to, because-
BR1 it's in there.
yes. And it's always been in there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the 1-to-4 wasn't addressed necessarily there before.
It was for BR1. It's always been in there for BR1.
Okay. I thought
Yeah.
we authored that specifically for Palm Cove.
Nope. Palm Cove
Because
had
it had come before the Board of Adjustment when I was serving there.
settlement agreement that I believe that stipulated those that which can
But I thought-
bypass the
I
zoning.
thought we authored that at that time. Never mind.
Okay.
You've answered my question there. One of the things that I under outdoor displays and outdoor storage, I get confused, and I want to provide the opportunity for our commercial properties, our commercial businesses to be able to advertise their goods.
Mhm.
Particularly here where we have a lot of visitors that don't know what
Yep.
specific stores are selling. But we have an abundance of stores that have outdoor displays. And we have stores that also use those displays as outdoor storage. I don't know that we address it. And I think, I would like Chad's comments on this. I think it can be a little problematic and maybe we should clean it up. There are certainly stores within Sunset Beach that put beach chairs out in front of them. And the beach chairs are there 24/7. And they have numbers on them. They don't have prices. And you go inside and there's a price list on a board that shows number 4 will cost $14.95. Number 7 will cost $22.91. And I don't know how you regulate it, Chad, or if you really even try to.
So the reason why they've now been separated is to help clear this up a little bit better. So
Okay.
now you've got as it exists today, they are combined. It says outdoor display and storage, and those are totally different things in my mind.
And I agree they are.
So now we've got an outdoor storage provision specifically, which basically is if you're storing stuff, then and that's on 318. Then it needs to be hidden, etc. Outdoor display, there is a provision that says specifically, and this is on 317 under H15, no merchandise, displays left out overnight
Number
are
6, yeah.
prohibited.
And number 6, prohibited being displays
Yeah, number
left
6.
out overnight,
Yeah,
so they can't be stored.
those are not supposed to be
That's the
there.
way I read it.
Yeah.
If you're using storage, you got to go to number I,
That's
or
right.
letter I,
That's
and
correct.
those are the standards that
Yeah.
apply.
I was really searching for Chad's input here as to how he deals with it now, or is it really just a cluster that is difficult to deal with?
Probably
It's a
gonna have to
cluster.
get a letter.
It's a cluster. And that's the whole reason why we're even into this process now, is because the existing UDO is a cluster. And it makes it confusing.
The only thing we're clear on in our old UDO is that Food Lion can sell seasonal Christmas trees. That's really the only thing that's properly addressed.
Yeah,
Because obviously you can't bring the Christmas trees in every night.
that's right.
But
And
that's the
that's a
only thing we
temporary,
do
yeah.
that's smooth.
Yeah. So,
Because there's also uses in the use table that shouldn't be uses.
yep.
Right.
You know, and
Well, I guess, Chad, you feel this new language between item H, outdoor display, and item I, outdoor storage standards, clear that up?
Yeah.
Never going to clear up everything, I guess.
correct.
Someone's going to figure out a way how to use the display and maybe
Yeah.
be storage at the same time.
Yeah.
But let's say in most cases, does the current language of H and I clear up most of the confusion on that?
Yes.
And I
So
believe,
that if someone obviously is storing stuff outside overnight and calling it display, it's a clear difference that can be either cited or corrected.
Correct.
and so we do have definitions now, new definitions for
Yeah,
this
and I
as
saw
well.
that, and I thought they were pretty good.
Okay.
I think they can be improved, but
Sure.
we're not there yet.
Yeah,
So
okay, got it.
that's
Okay.
the last page
Got
on
it.
today's homework
Yeah.
assignment.
Great.
All right, moving ahead. Can we move ahead? Is that good?
Yeah.
Jerry.
Swimming pools. When you
Chad,
get
are
down
you
there.
All right, I'm not there yet. If
When
we
you get down
can,
there, I have a question.
if we can go to self-service ice vending machines. The only place that we are discussing them is in the Mud District here.
Didn't we allow one meeting they could do it on BB1?
Well, that's sort of an extension of my question here.
Okay.
But Dollar General has an ice machine that I guess you could say is self-service because you go get it yourself. You pay for it inside. They
Is
allow
it attached to the building?
well, it's out at the entrance. It's on the sidewalk with an overhang.
That I would say that's
Not applicable.
You're talking about standalone.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
the one
like-
by the food line,
Yes.
or by the bank.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
should that maybe,
Let me see if we've got a definition for it.
because it says self-service ice vending machines, well, that's
But-
really
but
just, believe it or not, that's just I think what the the John
Food line.
Dollar is just an ice storage chest, right?
Yeah.
That-
It's not a machine. It doesn't make ice.
That's
because
right.
not only Dollar
It's just-
General will have them.
Well, but if we don't have a definition, then
Yeah.
that's.
So maybe the
I
def-
believe what you're saying, but
It's a storage
could-
chest. It's not a.
it's a storage.
It's
yeah.
not a
Not a
machine that
vending
has water piped to it and makes ice, and replenishes itself, like that big one does, like the one in Calabash does, and the one by the bank.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, so for example, the one they don't need to come get a zoning permit, a building permit for anything like that. But if you're building something, away from the building, et cetera, similar to accessory structure, it would necessitate triggering.
Do we have a definition for self-service ice vending machine?
Double checking.
I don't
right
know that
now.
we do yet.
You don't, so we need to add that.
Okay, that would
Yeah.
satisfy me if we
Okay.
properly identified that
Okay.
definition.
Definition.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about here are freestanding
That's right.
machines that
Uh,
produce and store and
yeah,
dispense ice.
self-sufficient.
Well,
Yeah,
they
and they
produce,
ice.
store,
Yeah.
and dispense ice,
Yes. Okay.
as opposed to just a chest where you open the lid and there's a bag in there and you put it in your car. That's just a
Yeah, because
giant ice chest.
every gas station
Yeah,
They all have
that's not really a structure. It's a cooler.
It's a cooler. It's
Yeah,
just a
yeah,
chest.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
So I think the contention is that it produces, dispenses, and stores.
and it also, we have to be careful because we're not allowing people to leave beach chairs out all night long with a price tag on them, but we're allowing people to leave an ice locker outside all night long. So we have to be careful as we define these displays versus storage. And I'm not trying. I think they're all good. I
Sure.
do not
Yeah.
want to ban them.
Sure.
I think they serve a purpose and they're good for the commercial entity.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to block them in any way. I'm just trying to
So
be
is there a
clear.
way to include an ice locker as an exception to?
We do not want to go down that route of start accepting things for as like a.
Well, we
as a
also talked
locker
about
route.
brochure and newsstands, and we've had
Yeah.
that discussion already before.
Yes, that needs to come out. Yep.
Yep.
Um,
The only place in town I think that has that is the Sunoco station.
let's add a definition from that for this, and then perhaps we'll see where we are. I mean, I don't foresee seeing ice lockers as something that necessarily needs to be regulated.
Okay, Jerry brought up something about swimming pools.
Yes.
and we'll go to him, and I had something on that too.
On the CR1, which is Palm Cove, there are swimming pools in there now,
We allowed a swimming pool of a certain size.
certain
elevation.
size.
That's
Okay.
also part of a settlement agreement.
Yes.
So it's okay. So
Yeah.
then, all right. So I'll give you for instance. Let's say
So, but isn't he right that that should also be in CR1?
No, so I mean, you guys can add it. We had this discussion about 4 years ago when
CR1 is different than other
Yeah.
zones.
well, CR1 Palm Cove is subject to a different set of rules and regulations
Huh.
that can more or less, because there was litigation filed and there's a lawsuit.
Yeah.
There were things that they can do in Palm Cove that are not currently permitted in your zoning
Right,
ordinance.
so if you can't add a swimming pool to BR1 whatsoever.
You cannot know.
Okay. So for instance, mostly because it's all duplexes on the beach, or
That's
the
just
way it is?
historically been the position of the town that they don't want basically a pool, to disturb basically folks' oceanfront view. If I've got a pool and there's
How many times have we been through this?
20 people in it or whatever, the neighbors next door.
And it has to do with what's called the back of that house versus the front of that house.
Well, that
on
too,
BR1.
and
Yes.
some other things. So it
Noise, yes.
But it's okay on BR2.
Yes.
Yes.
Across the street.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but they're not looking at the beach.
Well,
There was a reason for it, whether we agree or not. It's,
all right, so you put now you put them over in, you're putting the pools underneath the house on that, the new
Riverside.
Riverside. I don't, and
That's
those
only
pools,
because their lot is so small they
yeah,
can't.
well,
fit
there's a
above
couple
that.
houses there that have pools that are almost up to the bulkhead or whatever the distance
Yeah.
is allowed there. So I find it ironic that at least a single family home on the beachfront should have the opportunity to have a pool. Should have the opportunity. I'm not saying
I
I'm
know.
making the rules.
One of the objections was, well, a group rents the house and they're out there partying till the wee hours. I mean, I'm not arguing one
You
way or
could-
the
you
other.
could
That's
have
just what
It's
kept
second
coming
row,
up.
third row, fourth row. It's
The turtles objected too. So
Yeah, the turtle.
that makes sense, Peter. Thank you.
strike that from the record. Please. Jerry brings up a point. I do not want to see pools allowed in BR1.
Okay.
But I think there was a substantial reason for it not to be allowed, and I don't want to cross that. But
Yeah, I kind of agree with Pete on this.
It's ironic you allow it for one and not the other, but we will move on.
I would.
There
I would
are
bet-
I'm not getting involved in the politics.
as soon as you allow it, I'll bet there'll be 35 of them put in.
More than
Well,
that.
I would, on a duplex is very difficult to do. I don't think it would meet the standard, but a single family home might meet the requirements.
Lisa, do you want to touch on the? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Moving
Been
on.
there, done that.
Yes.
Jerry, I know you're probably not satisfied.
Oh, no,
But
I
it's-
was just curious.
He makes a good
I can
point.
just tell you for the record that there's been much blood, sweat, and tears over the years about pools. And it is, I think, firmly entrenched unless there is a dramatic shift in
Oh.
the.
Well, because the other
Yeah.
issue is that these pools have to be surrounded by fencing
Eh.
to, correct?
Well,
Yes.
So
I'll
now
just
it's
say
not
that
just a
it's
pool in
been
the backyard, it's a
yeah,
fence.
Yep.
Now you're going to interrupt people's views. I mean, it's
Yep.
and
Yep.
and you know the fences are crucial. You could have animals, children wander into these pools, and that would not
Yep.
be a good outcome.
Okay.
Okay, moving along.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, I'm trying to rethink my notes, so excuse me.
If we are, have we gotten to B, accessory structures?
I had not yet, because I had one question on A, 3.6A3, which is on page 3-15. It's the top line. Can we revisit why we established 1,500 square foot as the size of a residential
see.
unit? And do we have the right to do that?
You do for this is not
It's
a
accessory dwelling unit.
this is accessory dwelling unit only in basically in a commercial setting. Let's see, 3.6. These are in permitted
MB2 and BB1?
Yeah. So
And
these would be subject to commercial code building. You
Okay.
you can't do it for 1 and 2 family residential.
I thought we
Yeah,
couldn't.
yeah.
And
This
but-
is the way it's been. If you guys want to strike that, that's fine. That would
So you're saying that what we're saying here is there's a dwelling unit attached to
it's above.
above so an MB2
Yeah.
and BB1
Mhm.
shall
So-
not exceed 1,500
And
square
mud.
feet.
Yeah. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
If someone wants to do a 2,500 square foot penthouse, I mean, I don't know. It's up to you guys. It's in there. I did not change it because I didn't have direction to do so. But I don't know.
Is there a need to change it, Chad, or if it's not broke, we leave it the way it was?
I don't think it's ever been used.
No.
It's never been
Leave it
used.
alone. Yeah.
All right, leave it alone.
God forbid somebody wanted to exceed that square footage. Is this something they can take to the Board of Adjustment?
amendment.
No, it'd have to be a
No,
text
it has to be a
amendment.
text amendment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's
Got it.
that's the tricky
But that-
point, because a text amendment means anybody can then do it anywhere within that zone. So it's,
That's right. Well, you could just have a 5,000 square foot, whatever. You could have a large residential unit, above your business or whatever. But
Right.
but that's fine. We won't.
Well, typically the ways these are done are like what they are on Market Street. So the only way you'd get up to 5,000 square feet is if somebody took
The whole
It
floor.
would
the
be
whole floor of above
very
three of
un-
those residential.
very
I don't see that
unlikely,
as
yeah.
happening. Okay,
Yeah.
so good.
on, number 4 in that same thing, 3.6A4. It was confusing to me. I think what we're trying to say, or what we have said, is that the residential unit can be, well, I'll read it, shall be located totally above the ground floor or totally to the rear of the principal use so as not to interrupt the commercial frontage. Totally above the ground floor. Totally above ground floor. So
Above
it
the
cannot be on the ground floor.
That's correct.
Okay, I guess
The
it
reason
reads,
for that?
yes, it,
So if you would allow that on the ground floor, then you've sort of de facto allowed for it's not no longer necessarily a vertical mixed use building, and
Yes.
so you don't want to have your residence on the bottom and the business above. That's just
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, and that's really what I think has been very successful over in the village at Sunset Beach, is where it's commercial with residential above.
Yeah, because you also
that's-
don't want a line of commercial entities broken
well.
by a residential
Yep.
unit that's on the ground floor.
But we're trying to support commercial use.
Yeah.
That as primary, and that does that.
I
Yes.
agree.
You didn't change your
Yes,
facial
no,
expressions.
no,
That's-
it does. I mean, really, you folks in today's market, they are more concerned about the residential units and secondarily as for the commercial.
Accessory dwelling.
But anyways, yes, that's fine. All right, moving on.
No, I don't, never mind.
I noticed under B for accessory structure use, non-residential, we didn't seem to restate the 16-foot height limit maximum. Is that because it just doesn't need to be repeated, that it's somewhere else there will be a 16-foot height
We
requirement on
can,
accessory?
that can be restated, but remember, this is in the non-residential, this is in your non-residential districts, in your MB1, MB2. So, you know, the
All
thought
right,
being
yeah,
that
it's different.
it's,
No,
it's,
never
yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
You're right. It is different. It's not an accessory structure to a residential.
Right.
If you look on the, I know I'm jumping ahead, but if you look in C, accessory structure for use for residential 8, C8,
Yeah.
the
it's
height
in
may no longer be greater than
16
16
feet.
feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Are we in C?
That is really no, okay, that's standalone. I was thinking that was dealing with AF1, but no, that's standalone.
In I had just a question in C4, and
Okay.
it says no parcel within a residential zoning district may contain more than 2 accessory structures, excluding swimming pools / hot tubs and water dependent structures.
I wrote, what is this?
What is a water dependent? Is that you talking about a shower?
We probably need to define that if I didn't
What's a
define it.
I
Water-
couldn't figure out what's a water dependent
That-
slide,
No,
Well,
that,
what about a well?
no.
What about a well
a well house.
cover thing? Is
Water
that-
dependent structures are defined in the CAMA in North Carolina Administrative Code 7H. Those are your docks, piers, etc.
Oh, okay.
So you wouldn't want, but they're technically accessory structures. We can add a definition for that.
Yeah,
though.
So we
I
just
mean-
need a definition. Okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out what we were talking about there.
and we're the ones that really authored this. I think we said that swimming pools and hot tubs should not be considered accessory structures because you're only limited to 2 accessory
Okay.
structures.
So I guess in
for
my
the
mind, then,
purposes
is
for
the
the
sh-
purposes of this,
Is,
yeah.
is a shower considered part of a pool or a hot tub?
I would
No, no,
consider
that's
it
separate structure.
Attached to the house.
That
Well,
So an
it
outside shower,
depends.
talk about it.
If it stands alone,
Yeah.
it can be an accessory building, which is a shower.
So is that part of the 2?
If it's
In other words,
connected to
somebody
the house, that's different.
so if somebody puts a pool and a hot tub in, and they have a outside shower, that eats up one of the 2.
Is it attached to the house, or is it attached to the pool, or is it just standing out in the middle of the yard?
Well,
With
I
lattice work around it.
Like, yeah, well, yeah, yes. I mean, I don't know. I don't have one, so I don't know.
Well,
But
I
most
mean-
people try to put a shower. It's kind of what
Yeah.
we do by the gazebo, right?
Well,
When you
no,
get
I mean-
off, you got the overhead shower.
I'll say this: most of the
Is-
time, you see these attached to the house because it has to come off the plumbing of the house.
Yes, I have the plumbing, but I don't have the structure.
Right.
But people with pools, of course, try to put them near the pool.
I would say.
And you got water by the
I would say
pool.
the structure around it has to. If I was interpreting that, the spigot comes off the house, or the water supply comes off the house. That structure apparatus around it would have to meet the setbacks of the house because it's attached to the house.
So the
Which is-
modesty
Which
shield
is like
that
12
you-
foot instead of 5 foot.
the modesty shield that you would build that's attached to your house with the shower on it would not be considered an accessory
No.
structure, or
No.
would
to
it?
be attached.
But you have to have the right primary house, principal house setback,
Right.
which in my MR2 is 12 foot.
Right.
So you could be limited as to what side of the house you can put it on.
Or I see a lot of these. You put them up underneath the house.
But if you put it, yes, but if
Within
you
the
put it
building.
out by the pool and had its own, I like your modesty shield
Right.
definition, that's an accessory structure.
It's not considered part of the pool hot tub.
I've also never seen that come up either.
It might not have come up, but
Well,
I know it exists.
I wasn't objecting to it, but I was curious as to what a water dependent structure is, and I've been satisfied that Wes said we're going to have a definition
Well,
for that.
I guess then my question is, do we want it to be part of the pool hot tub? That you can do that without taking away from the 2? Or our intent is, if you put in a pool and a hot tub and you want a modesty area shower that's not attached to not bolted to the side of your house, it counts to one of your accessory structures. That's our intent?
I could be persuaded either way. I'll say yes, it should be one of the accessory structures.
I would anticipate that it would typically be part of a little cabana or whatever else that would be subject to this count.
You could put it
Right.
with your pool filter, with your pool pump, that kind of thing too, which,
I would not. I don't foresee that creating an issue, and I wouldn't necessarily start trying to regulate something like that. You may find yourselves, it's us going down a big rabbit hole on
Yeah.
it.
Well,
think.
the accessory structure isn't really, we're not trying to regulate it. We're just saying, hey, you can only have two and this counts as one. I don't see that as regulating it.
It's absolutely regulating it.
Okay.
But I mean, the fact that we have a count on it also regulates it. But
Okay, that's a good point.
I don't see a need, but we can come up with something if we need to.
Chad, do you see this as something that's burning a hole in your pocket?
No. And
Okay.
also, again, our intent of this is to clean things up, make it clear, and not. Yeah, we're not going to be able to control we're not going to be able to.
let's leave it the way it is.
Okay.
And put a
We're not
definition
going
in
to be
for
able
one
to
of the main
move
structures.
everything under the sun to a black and white situation. There's going to be interpretation that.
Well, we're trying to do the best. We're trying to make it
Yeah.
easier than it is now.
Yeah.
Okay, under E for docks, piers, gazebos, I just submit that we remove the word gazebo from that.
Yep.
Because we talked about it before.
Okay.
Then we get into dune walkovers again with the 4-to-1. Um,
That's done.
all right, under home occupation,
Oh, yeah.
I have just a question for Wes and for Chad, because I think some of these situations have come up recently, and we want to try to rewrite things so that we're taking these into consideration. I'll ask the question under G, home occupation. Can a resident be a staging point for deployment of employees not residing at the dwelling? In other words, can I run a business out of my house and every morning I have 7 employees that come, park in my driveway, and I take them off in another vehicle and we go build swimming pools somewhere? Now, I appreciate the fact this can be very hard to prove. This can be very hard to regulate because I could just be having 7 people come over for coffee every morning.
As long as they're licensed vehicles.
Yes. As long as I'm not abandoning a vehicle or they're not sleeping in a trailer in my front yard.
When it comes to home occupations, you have to be able to prove without a reasonable doubt, and if it goes to the nth degree, to be able to prove it in a court of law, that's how you have to.
Well, I'm not using
So-
the floor space in my house for that
That
business.
this says that where permitted, any occupation or profession carried on entirely within a dwelling. So
Not using more than 25% of my footprint of my
that's
floor
correct.
space.
So if the profession, if the 7 folks obviously come over there and they're working in the house, 100%, no question, that would violate the terms of home occupation.
Mhm.
Well, if there's 7 vehicles and they're parked in the spots where they're supposed to be parked, they're not parked on neighbors, etc., and they're not carrying on the profession,
Mhm.
then it
Can't do anything about it.
yes.
The 2 things that when I get home occupation concerns are, one, do I even know a home occupation is going on there? Are there signs of it? Signage. 2, is it creating any more traffic down that street than would normally be down that street? So those are the two things that really factor into that.
right.
It's become, I'm not trying to go down this rabbit hole, but almost like regulating short-term rentals. How do you prove it that that's going on? It's a proof thing than anything else.
That's easier because they advertise on VRBO or Airbnb
makes
or
it-
hotels.com
Yeah,
and you see that.
Yeah, and it's still difficult to regulate.
Yes.
So
All right,
And
you've
we're
answered my
not- we're not-
question.
And I guess why would we?
what?
I mean,
Again, I'm
someone's
not trying to
running
go
a
down
home-
that rabbit hole.
I see what I was okay when you start out. Well, additional traffic, noise, disturbance, but if none of that is occurring,
Correct.
Why do we care?
A lot
I
of
mean,
people.
just because you happen to live by someone, they also own their property. I mean,
It's
as long as they're
That's
not
the
creating
point.
noise,
yeah.
odors,
Yeah.
traffic.
I asked the question.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to
Yeah, but,
editorialize.
yeah, but I mean,
No, you have a great point, and that's always been my thing.
right. So it becomes
Yeah.
just like the Airbnb thing.
Yeah.
It's fine up until the house gets rented by the 20 college students and the party goes on, right?
Right.
Really don't care about somebody renting their house
Well, that's a police matter.
until the bad actor shows up, right?
Right.
You're trying to eliminate the bad actor all the time. My only question on that one is total floor area, 25% of total floor area.
Mhm.
Is that a proper definition we're trying to use there?
Mhm.
Because I know
It's
when
pretty
you're purchasing homes, you got like living area, and
Heated.
is there a solid definition of what floor area of a home or residence is? Somebody says, "Well, my house is
Typically,
2,000 square feet,
Well,
and I'm only using 400."
well, yeah, no,
But
no.
you say, no, your house is really 1,500 square feet, so
It-
you're using more.
You would typically defer to the tax records. And
So
the
is
tax
that defined
records have
when we
it-
say
have
that
it-
as total
have it
floor area per the tax
stipulated.
record?
Yeah,
Um,
typically, if you are a work at home person, and I'm
I think
very
that's a
familiar with
definition.
this,
Is it in
by,
you're allowed to depreciate a certain
and they talk
percentage,
about
That's a
heated
different
area.
thing.
Right.
and that's something you declare to the IRS.
So when we say total floor areas, should we add that as defined in your
But
tax record, or is
it
that in a definition?
I think it's defined typically as heated area.
Areas.
Yeah.
But that's different. You could. So your
Either
garage.
way.
don't count.
we will have
Can you help her?
definitions.
She's in need.
I mean,
She can't open up her bottle.
I'm sorry. I had hand surgery, and I'm waiting for hand surgery.
All right, they answered my question, and I just posed the question to see if there was some other complementary regulation that would limit you from running a business out of your
If
house,
this situation comes up,
having it as a staging area. Running a business out of your house is a different than what I was saying. So it's
and this is, I mean, when
We-
I read this, because I'm very sensitive to the idea of the digital nomad, and we're starting to see those folks down here. Person that can sit in their chair at a computer and do web development. I mean, what I used to do. I mean, we're way clear of impacting that, from what I read in this definition of home occupation.
Yeah,
and I think the 25% is good. You have to have
Yeah.
some
oh, I'm not worried about
Parameter.
the 25%. The
It's-
25 is fine. Is that, do we have a clear definition on how total floor area is calculated? Is that in?
You can put heated and cooled in there if you'd
Yes.
like to do that.
Well, I'm fine with the being on the tax record or whatever, because if this should come up, it's 25% of an unknown number is an unknown number.
Yeah. Well, I would say almost every home has a square foot listing if you go to Zillow or Realtor.com.
But that varies.
But that's
You
based
can
on
look
the
at the
tax
same
record.
property.
All right, can we just say tax record and move on?
Thank you.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, or is it in our definitions and I just didn't see that?
There is,
I
you
don't-
will have them in there.
I don't think
but
the
there,
definition.
it's probably under gross floor area, but I will have them added. Heated and cooled tax area would
I guess all I'm saying is we should have if we're saying there's a 25% of X
Yeah.
applies,
Tax record.
X has to be defined
Yep.
either in the definitions or in this particular phrase, such that if the conflict should come up with somebody, Chad can say, I go to Brunswick County tax roll
Yeah.
and it says your house is 2,000 square feet
Yep. Got it.
and you're using a 600-foot room for your business, you're
Yep.
over the 25%.
Yep.
It's
We got tax. I added tax record. Yep.
All right, going on to H, can we move? Is that okay
Move.
with everybody?
Yeah.
When we go to outdoor displays, this is very simple. This is number 6 under H, outdoor displays. Display left out overnight are prohibited. We're not trying to regulate vending machines, though, are we?
That's a different thing.
Okay, that's what I mean. This
Yeah,
this
yeah.
isn't intended to say that vending machines are not allowed to be left out overnight.
Right.
And there's other places in here that clarify that.
I mean, we can create a separate provisions for vending machines if we need to, but I don't know if that's something we need to do or we can.
Do we? Maybe we should. Huh?
I don't know if we have situations of vending machines,
No.
except ice machines, but they aren't vending.
Yeah, you
They're locked at night.
could.
If there's not an issue with vending machines, I wouldn't go down
Okay.
the.
Moving on.
Okay.
All right. I just have one question. When we get down to 7, and
Well,
then again in 8 is
We're at 7.
okay. I just think there's a little redundancy there, and maybe because of your history and your knowledge, you think it's necessary. But to me, it's like, okay, you've got to leave this space open for handicap, and yet it's said 2 more times.
You would be surprised.
Hmm?
You would be surprised. I've seen that before.
Okay, all right, then that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I've seen that where we want to take outdoor display, sales, clothes racks, and we want to put them in parking spaces, handicap parking, all that.
That is an issue. People.
Okay,
It may not be an issue here, but I've seen it in issues in other jurisdictions.
Well, it
I've
has
worked in.
been.
Has it?
During our pandemic, because of outdoor dining and keeping people 6 foot apart, there was an allowance for certain restaurants to have seating out in the parking lot, as long as they weren't preventing the proper number of parking spots that were required by code. But I thought that was good.
okay. I just thought, I guess I'm sensitive to the handicap part of it, and I just felt like, is that not common sense at some point? I mean, why do you have to say it 3 times?
Well, but it gives Chad the opportunity to point to this.
And that's fine. He said it is important, so I'm good with it.
But I agree, it's in a couple of spots, and some of it's intuitive. It shouldn't be.
Yeah, but yeah. Okay.
Outdoor storage.
Yeah, I have one issue there, or one question, I should say.
Mhm.
On, in no case shall the height of any outdoor storage materials, is this just open, visible storage? Or is it, can we still use a 20-foot old container, shipping container as storage?
That's a portable storage container, which
So it's
is
something
different.
separate.
This is
So
just like you
open.
got stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
stuff, just, okay.
But let's go to that. How do we, because I don't know that it's addressed anywhere else. How do we go to these portable storage containers? And I'm not trying to say they shouldn't be allowed, because we have a situation right over here where
We have it.
it's
The
exists.
portable storage containers will be in your temporary uses, and that's how they're regulated now for temporary uses, unless I'm mistaken.
No,
And
you're
they're not necessarily a permanent accessory. I think they're only supposed to be allowed for a certain portion of time.
And if they're a certain size and you can only have a certain number of them,
Yep.
that's
That's
And they're
right.
permitted.
Yeah, and they're permitted. And I can tell you that, the intention for this use table was to have accessory uses, residential uses, and non-residential as 3 categories. But you guys have so many temporary uses now, we're probably going to have a 4th category for temporary uses. I'm thinking to be, I don't know. Anyways, that's likely what's going to transpire, and certain things like that will be.
when
in
will
there.
that transpire?
You'll have that as part of your next homework.
Okay.
Not today, but
Okay.
when
No, I think
Yeah.
that's a good solution
yeah.
because, okay.
All right,
I can
Jerry,
talk
does
to you
that?
about
Yeah, I just,
That's fine.
just
What we just
to
Yeah, I know
what we
what you
see.
mean.
Yeah.
I know what you
And
mean.
That's not temporary. It's been permanent since I've been.
Well, it's been there for a while.
Yeah. I guess the question is when does temporary turn into
Yeah.
permanent
Yeah.
after a period of time? Is
It's
it
well, we address temporary storage containers and we put a limit on the time.
That's right.
It's already,
What's the time?
but we're talking about
I don't.
pods is really
That's
what
right.
we're referencing,
Yeah.
which is like a Connex box but different.
Yeah, the other thing you run into is how long has it been there, and you run into statute of limitations, and changing it and then going back, and that's something that's also run up the chain before stuff is ruled on as well. So there's a lot
Talking
of
about it being grandfathered in because
Yeah.
of lack of action.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, we I think successfully under solar energy. Does anybody mind moving forward up to L solar energy
My
system?
mistake. I thought-
And
Let's see,
Well,
Pete, I had
J&K
one-
was all right for
Pete, I got
everybody?
one
Well, it was
thing.
for me, but it's
And one last thing.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought we
fine.
agreed on one meeting that we allow to have self-serving vending machines in BB, and it's not. We didn't address it here today as a part of
You have that.
the chart. I don't mean to go back. I just had a note to that.
yeah, it's we don't want to miss something.
No,
Did you have
Which one is it now?
self-serving engines?
it's a
Self-serving.
on the island, a self-serving.
The ice
we
machine?
did talk about it having it.
And which line are you looking at specifically? The one that had to do with the ice machine?
Yes, ice
Yeah.
machine itself, self-serving ice machine.
In the
Okay.
BB1.
BB1, yeah.
BB1. And
Let
it's
me look.
obviously it's
But
for-
but that's fine. You can allow it.
You know, I had the same thing and I missed it. I had MB1, MB2, and BB1.
Right now, it's only listed in the mud.
Right. Good point, Jerry. This is on page 3-14.
Yeah.
Do we have
Yeah,
it
I
before?
think what Wes is looking for his audit note on that.
Okay.
Is that under machine, comma, ice?
Yes, self-service
Vending,
ice vending machine.
Where is it in your existing?
And we just
table?
said now we need a definition for that, a better definition.
Mhm.
But we really don't want to have we don't want to have these large self-sufficient
Can you
ice
search?
machines in MB1, MB2, or BB1.
That's what I recalled, but
And
I'm
I'd
trying to
agree with
look to
that.
see if I had.
But
any
Jerry's
notes.
talking about
just
vending machines,
just like the one
soda machine.
Oh,
Well,
we're
no.
not
This
restricting
is like
that.
the one we talked about at Food Line, the one next to Food Line.
Yeah.
having
So he's talking about a
a
full
freestanding,
machine.
and we
Yes.
talked about that at one time. We all agreed
I'd have to pull
that
a
it
note.
should be on the island someplace in BB1.
I don't know that I agree to that, but maybe we did.
Self-serving for me, Pete.
Well, I mean,
It should be allowed. If go back and look at the notes.
Yeah.
And it's-
So BB1, what, I gotta get, wait a minute. BB1 is,
I
want to
don't-
make sure I know
Where's
where
this?
it's at.
Where is
it's
it in
only
your
on-
existing-
That's what I'm
Yeah.
looking for.
yeah,
I
it's
think
only
you're
on
right.
Yeah, but
where? I'm
it's
just-
only this,
There's only two
Pink
streets,
area?
2 streets, 3 streets.
Yeah, it's a small area.
It's,
so
all right,
that's the
where you
ones
put it.
along the,
So it would be under large scale ice vending machines.
Yeah, and
It's along the main thoroughfare into town, into the.
what would the people?
Yeah, I didn't have any notes. I didn't have in my notes to do that, but you
I
guys
didn't either,
certainly
but that doesn't mean we
can.
can't consider that right here now.
I think it makes sense.
it sort of makes sense. Why, I mean, right now, the people, so the way it is, well, where do the people make their own ice in a
I don't have
refrigerator,
a-
but
To me personally, I would not have a problem with it as long as it can meet the setbacks and
Absolutely.
meets the parking requirements. Doesn't take up any parking or prohibit. If you can fit it in there and meet all the other definitions, I mean, as a fishing community, I mean, Lisa, historically, I mean, do you think there would be any, like a,
MB1
like,
and MB2 and BB1.
well, no, I thought we were just talking about BB1 now.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah,
we were just talking
BB1.
about BB1.
BB, we're, yeah, pick one at a time. So
I mean,
BB1,
if
I
it
think
can meet
Jerry
the
makes a good
standard-
point.
Okay, I'd agree
because
to that.
Pete, you got to think. I mean, the island's limited.
Well, services are important.
Services are
Yeah.
Yeah.
Services are important.
So-
Convenience is important.
BB1.
BB1.
Yeah,
So
okay.
in the table under self-service ice vending, we would add a PS
That's
Yes.
correct.
under BB1, right?
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
on the table, but not under. I had the question marks under MB2 and MB1 as well.
I don't think that that's something that you would necessarily want on those size parcels.
We've got
Yeah.
one in mud right now.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
Yeah, no,
No,
you
thank
bring
you.
up a good point. I just didn't remember us having dealt with that, but
And I'm sure the
I'm sure we
fishing
did.
community would welcome that.
Yeah, get your ice for your cooler.
well, I
And
mean,
not have
and
to
there's
drive all the way up.
other people that we have we have right down by the boat ramp. Uh, but I guess we don't need to go there.
So that's what we're making the change in the table. Adding
Yes.
a PS to BB1 for ice self-standing
Right.
vending machine.
All right, good.
All right, then it's solar systems, and under under
Did get a
I2,
power plant. What about it? Get a power plant.
under I2, we agreed under ground-mounted solar energy systems that are prohibited except in half-acre lots and 50 foot from lot line setback.
You're talking about L2?
L2, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, L, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It
I
is.
know, I'm trying
Yeah.
to.
L2.
We
right?
got you.
Yeah.
Section L2, L paragraph 2.
I'll also put in there that's got to be behind the principal structure.
Yeah.
So it can't be the front yard. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That makes sense.
All right, under swimming pools, I think we already kind of talked a little bit here about showers, because I had a thing here about bathrooms.
The only
That
question,
somebody might want to put a bathroom out by their pool, but
I don't have a pool, but I have a question here, and I maybe don't. On paragraph 1, subsection C, the fencing, it says all residential pool enclosures shall be completely installed within 30 days of the pool completion and before the pool is filled with water.
can't
No,
happen.
I could, okay, maybe you're answering my question. I thought, and I could be wrong, when they install like those fiberglass ones,
They have to fill
they
it.
put water in right
The
away.
buoyancy thing, it'll come,
Right.
it won't.
It will pop back up.
Yeah.
So do we need to talk about some temporary fencing or something in here around it as soon as water gets put into it? I think,
It says that it has to be installed before the pool is filled with water.
well, the final fencing, but you can't do that, I think, either.
I don't.
You got to put the fence, when you put one of those, the way I seen them done is they dig the hole, put the thing in, put some water in it, and then they start working on the outside of it. The fence doesn't go up. But I watched a contractor that seemed they put up some temporary barrier around the pool while there was water, and then they did the decking, whatever concrete needed to go around the edge of the pool. There's a gap in time
Yeah.
between when there's some water in the pool and should we have a provision for
There
temporary fencing before?
He is right.
Yeah.
And
Well,
That's
even
building
a
code.
blind squirrel
Yeah,
finds an
but-
acorn every now and
But
then.
that,
There you go.
but, you know,
but no,
There's
but
that.
that is building code,
but
right?
that's a building code thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the way, and I can again call Kerry in here, and the way he handles that is that I think there's a mandatory temporary. There's always some kind of fencing around it
Right.
to address the building code issue. until
So
it
that is
gets-
addressed.
That is addressed.
Because I got confused when
I think
read it.
Wes is
We're
pulling
saying,
that language straight from the building code, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Well, it's
The
you guys'
problem isn't-
existing
The
language.
problem
yeah.
is code enforcement of it. It is difficult.
well,
But this right here is clear that the town is saying that you have to be safe.
right.
And if somebody doesn't do it, because it's hard to install a pool when the fence is already up.
Right,
So
you
the
can't.
day you put the pool in, you have to start filling it full
So
of water.
my question
the
is,
fence is likely not going to be
do
there.
we need to put something here about safety fencing being in as soon as there's water in the pool? Or is it,
I mean, it says that you've got to have a pool enclosure before the pool is filled with
You
water.
put the
Yeah.
burden on,
Yeah.
on the person to take proper action. I agree that it doesn't say final fencing. It isn't final fencing, which is what this says. But
Because the other thing too is if it's only partially filled, in some ways that creates a greater danger.
Can I?
It says
I-
that
I
by
just wanna make
by a fence or equivalent type barrier as required by the North Carolina State Building Code. And I
Okay.
believe that's what's
Yes.
followed.
Yes.
you satisfied?
I don't know.
I will say this. I
I'm
will,
thinking about it. I just want to make
let
sure
me-
we have it
let me
properly
propose
covered.
This.
Because obviously we want to avoid it.
Wes and I getting with Carrie to make sure that this definition is sufficient without work.
Right. So you can do that, and we'll take appropriate action.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to make
What-
sure there isn't a gap, I guess.
Yes.
The question I had too in this, well, in B above where Ron is right now, but it talks about wastewater facilities. I don't know what wastewater facilities are for a pool, because when you drain a pool, you typically just dump it on your lawn, if for some reason you're draining it. But wastewater to me is a toilet, is a bathroom. It's brown water, and that to me would come from a bathroom, and I didn't know what
Oh, you're talking about B, the second line,
Yeah,
right?
the
B.
wastewater facilities. I just don't know what wastewater facilities are, or if it really even needs to be here.
It's probably referring to pumps, filters, all that type of stuff. I don't know. This is language that's been. I didn't want to touch pools with a 30-foot pole if it's in here, but that can be. We can strike that swimming pool site shall be designed so that drainage from surrounding areas, et cetera, do not enter the pool enclosure. So you would get rid of water and wastewater.
Okay, I just didn't know what wastewater
Sure.
was.
Yeah, you're talking about. Yeah, the word wastewater itself. Yeah.
Should we strike the adequate water and wastewater facilities?
Maybe and wastewater.
Well, how about
is
the-
drainage the
Because
better word
if you
there?
just say water facilities, it covers all water, right?
Yeah, it,
Coming in and going out.
yeah, but if we,
Drainage
and I think Wes has it here, I think if we say swimming pools shall be
Shall be designed.
so that the drainage from the surrounding area, and we take out, there's about 8 words in there that we just take out that have to do with adequate water and wastewater facilities. We strike provided with adequate water and wastewater facilities shall be, and it reads now, swimming pool site shall be designed so that the drainage from surrounding area will not enter the pool enclosure and shall be equipped with adequate power, da 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 da.
Now, do we need to make some accommodation so if that person drains that pool, it doesn't impact neighboring properties?
Well,
Because I don't see that in here.
I don't know that you can't flood somebody else's. Chad, but that doesn't fall under the 1.5 inches of rain.
Oh, no.
So
I don't know. I don't know how you address that.
I
mean,
don't
it-
believe it's been a problem before, so I don't know that
Yeah.
it's something
I
that
don't
we need.
When does
need to
somebody? I don't
address.
have a pool, so I don't know
Yeah.
how this works.
Yeah.
Does somebody occasionally have to drain their pool to do? I guess to do maintenance, right? If you have a concrete pool, but we don't. Those. If you have a tile.
in the
concrete-
wintertime, you drop the level of your pool a couple of feet
You
so
put a
that
bubble
it's
in there.
down below the intake and access and egress
But if
pipes
you-
so that they don't freeze.
But if you do that, there's a mechanism to be able to drain it properly where the water goes somewhere
Well,
properly.
you take a hose and you put it in your driveway.
We
suction.
siphon it.
You siphon.
Okay.
I don't know that it's a problem.
Okay. Chad, you've never gotten a call?
Not on that. No.
Okey doke.
I'm just reading because I have a note here and I'm trying to figure out what I said. It couldn't have been too important.
Nothing on hot tubs from anybody.
Well, I made a note here. I said, a question I had, island hot tubs under houses on concrete are not allowed. In other words, they're not below ground, they're above ground, but they're on concrete underneath a beach house. And I made a note here, question mark, they're not allowed. And obviously they are allowed. So I might have just had a bad thought as I was going through it. I don't know.
Be mounted into the ground.
Because this is dealing with
I don't get
island
that one either.
lots.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's just on the island.
But it says be mounted into the ground whereby the top of the hot tub and any surrounding decking is at grade. So that is saying you can't put an above ground hot tub underneath on a concrete slab in BB1.
That's correct.
And
Why?
there then, does that have to have a
Flood,
fence?
flood damage prevention rules.
If it's in the ground, does it have to have a
Flood
fence
damage
around it?
prevention rules.
It would probably.
Explain.
I believe it's in the VE or AE zone. It's probably subject to being a structure. This provision was existing. Presumably, it was put in here for good reason. I didn't necessarily. We can get.
But is that what we want to say, is that people on the island, and because it says island here specifically, cannot put a hot tub on concrete underneath their house?
That's what it says.
Yep.
But
you can put it up on the deck.
Yes.
well,
Deck
Yes.
raised.
Well,
Yeah, the deck
and
is
here's
raised.
why, because on the ground, I mean, that's a relatively public
but
area.
no, it's not because of that. It's so that if it floods,
It doesn't
the
wash
hot
away.
tub doesn't go down
Wash
the
away.
street
It's not a
and
boat.
destroy destroy whatever else that is adjacent to you.
Right.
That's why the provision is in place.
Boy, I learned something today. That's, okay, thank you.
Well,
Now, I would need to confirm specifically that those hot tubs are subject to flood damage prevention rules. I believe this is why it was put in place, or they were put in place. We have a number of our communities that have odd provisions because they've had hurricane damage as a result of someone's stuff, hot tub, whatever it may be, going down and causing damage outside of their property. I believe
Right.
that's why this rule
Okay,
is
now
there.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And if it isn't an above ground deck attached to the house, then
How's
it's not
that
going to float
different?
away.
That's not going to float away. Yeah.
But I mean, if you don't want it to leak and dump down the street and flood everything, what about if it floods on the deck? Isn't that
no, we're
just
talking
as
about
bad?
storm
He's talking
surge.
about it buoyancy, the whole hot tub going down like a boat down the street.
During
going
storm
into
surge.
somebody
Ah,
and hitting a
okay,
car.
okay. I didn't
It's going to
understand
be
that
like
part.
a bowling pin, because it's, a bowling ball down. So, yeah, I could see that as doing some fairly.
Well, usually would
substantial
probably just
And-
go next door, but
And any kind of fastening
You can't.
wording in here could just be convoluted. It's
Right.
because it would have to be engineered. All right, is this an issue, Chad?
Apparently, it was at one time.
Since I've been here for 2 years, I've not had an issue with one, hot tubs being allowed under the house, but also two, this being a provision that's been
Well,
anything.
I would bet $1 against the donut right now that I can go find in BB1 or on the island that there is a hot tub that's sitting on the ground.
And Lisa, do you know when this
And
provision was put in place?
I know where one is.
Because I think it's been in the last couple years. Was updated.
I would
or-
actually be under the
I bet this has been put in here after Florence, is my guess, because I don't recall this being here when I was here before Hiram was here.
because I would also be willing to take it out as long as it meets the
It would still have to meet the flood
Flood
damage. Yeah.
prevention ordinance.
All right, if it does, again, I know of
Yeah.
Not, like I
examples
said, I
of,
would be in favor of them being on grade underneath a house as long as it
in the ground.
meets the damage prevention ordinance language.
That makes sense.
how can that be?
If you in an AE, you have provisions that where you would not have it in the VE, that type thing. You have different flood zones.
We have we have a little bit of AE on the island.
We have a lot of AE.
You have a lot of AE, a lot less VE than you used to, and depending on the
Because
size
they
of a
changed that.
structure, it
Yeah,
can
they
be
changed it.
exempted from flood damage.
I'm going to retract my question because I don't know that there's it's something we already have. It isn't broken.
Leave it
I'm
alone.
prepared to move on.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, is it not broken and we're just, but it's happening and it's not being enforced? Or
Well-
you're kind of into that. I don't know.
But
So is that worse than?
let it be enforced. If it is a safety issue, let it be enforced.
Right. I mean, we got to have one or the other. If we think this
Shall
is a
be
safety
enclosed
issue,
by
we
a
shouldn't
fence.
allow it. If we don't think it's a safety issue, or it's not a safety issue in certain flood zones, then we need to do it that way. I guess.
Well, I would think that somebody would have to have a mechanical permit before they hook up a hot tub and through the town, and our building inspectors would have had to see that.
Potentially. I mean, a lot of these are just a plug and play type system where
Come as a whole pod now. You buy the whole thing instead of
Put the
down.
hose in and
You put a hose to it and a plug, and it's done.
And it
Which may be
runs
the
off
worst
110
scenario
volts?
because the thing is just sitting there,
they
Really?
do
Right.
have those.
Wow.
as opposed to a structurally
and that's
installed
where-
hot tub
and
on the
that's where I
ground.
think, again, just plug it into an outlet.
Hey, well, a garden hose, and
Yeah,
it's got its own little heater and pump in. Yeah, you're good to go.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just buy a whole.
All right,
map.
what is the pleasure of planning board as far as addressing this issue?
I guess the first question in my mind is it or is it not a safety hazard to neighbors having such a thing?
If,
In reality, in the
When
real
it-
world, if there's a storm surge, is this really a particular hazard that's a barbecue grill or
So-
a golf cart sitting there?
So to answer your question, no. But there are provisions in the floodplain ordinance where allow structures such as
An accessory structure with a footprint less than 144 square feet that is basically attached to the ground is not required to meet the elevation standard. So
Where do you reading?
this is in the flood damage prevention ordinance in Article 12 of your existing provision, but it says
What is that again? What was the size? 144 square feet?
144 square feet. So, I mean,
And that's section 12?
so basically, they would be exempted, but they still need to be firmly anchored under the NFIP rules. This is more restrictive for whatever reason that is in here, and so we would have to find when this was amended what the particular reasoning was for it, and so on and so forth.
Right. But like I say, what I'm trying to get to is what's the true hazard
It's
of
what-
that versus I think we found out a couple of years ago, golf carts parked under.
Yeah, but they don't
Yeah.
float. They explode, though.
Well,
That's so much better.
that seems to be a bigger hazard than a little hot tub thing being thrown. I don't know. I mean, what's the reality of the hazards?
I know, but I'm
As-
right
yeah,
now
I
we're
know.
talking
as
about hot
weighed against
tubs.
the difficulty
think
of
we're
going back and
looking at
enforcing this right now.
this way too closely. I mean, I think we need to look at it more
I-
on
I'm
if
prepared
we
to move
allow it
on.
or not allow it.
I'm
Okay.
prepared to move on because I don't
Well,
know.
I would say, but to allow it by blinders is
Well, but he's got
Yeah.
another provision that if
Right.
it's under 144 square feet, it's not applicable. If it's over that, it needs to be dealt with.
It would still be applicable here. So you can be more restrictive. So if you leave this provision in place, it still controls. It would still says you can't do these
you can't do
underneath.
it at all.
Of any size.
That's correct.
Oh, boy.
So I think we should leave it.
Well, I mean,
Or should we word it? I thought I heard a suggested reword the section and make it apply to the flood rules, which means there would be some exceptions for small ones.
Oh wait, sorry.
No.
Placement shall not be such that structure is resting on the ground and shall only be placed on approved above ground deck to the principal structure or in compliance, with applicable provisions of the flood damage prevention ordinance, which would mean that I guess that it could be on the ground and anchored.
Mhm.
I believe by saying resting on the ground, that's just
so do
there.
we solve the problem by
Yes.
Yes.
eliminating the language here?
No, by
No.
adding the language and anchored. Am I reading you?
No,
Well,
it
so
solves
it-
it because it's in the flood damage prevention ordinance.
That's right.
So in
That-
other words, don't strike out Article 12
Yeah.
here.
It says
Well-
applicable provisions of the flood damage prevention ordinance, so it references
Okay.
that because
Yeah.
it's allowed there through certain standards. It's allowed here
Well,
as
well,
long as it meets it.
And I can go along with that because what it's doing is it's doing a better job
Yes.
than what we
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
anchored isn't defined.
It is here in section, it will be in Article 5 in your new ordinance, but it is here in your flood damage prevention ordinance, and Chad's familiar with it.
But anchored could mean I've got a brick sitting on top
No,
of it. and
it's very defined.
Right,
It's
yes.
1204A1.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I mean, I can tell you.
help me understand. So if we
okay.
if we remove the prohibition here,
It says to be mounted
I-
into the ground.
Just leave it. I would say
What are
just
we
leave it
thinking
alone.
about?
Yes.
okay.
And it addresses everything that we just talked about.
It
Alright.
basically says adequately anchored to prevent flotation, collapse, and lateral movement of the structure.
Okay.
All right, cool. Ron, are you okay?
I don't live in the island. I don't care.
Okay.
No, I don't know. I'm a little
right,
confused
I-
on where we're at on this
We
thing.
got 15 more minutes. You guys
Yeah.
thought that you didn't have much material to
I,
get
we're
through.
on
I
that-
had
we're on that
nothing
page.
else here. Under accessory structure definition, I'm moving on.
All right.
Okay. And the last thing we have here is these definitions. Now, I've already answered that question in my own mind. And under home occupation,
On that one, I said, isn't that just completely redundant?
There was not a definition prior. It is.
But this
redundant.
is the same paragraph that occurs in the standard, right?
That's right.
So why do we repeat?
You still want to have a definition, and you are going to have redundancy on some things.
because accessory structure will show up other places and people
No,
want to
no,
go to
home
the
occupation.
definition.
Yeah, home occupation. The standard is more or less.
Okay, so we got to change the floor area thing there too, then, to match
Yes.
And I have
Floor
one.
area
Tax.
tax record.
tax record. So this is just a
And actually, I believe what it was prior is you had a use standard that was your definition. Now we've moved that also into so it's taken
Right.
care of in both places.
I
But
just have
then
one.
why do we repeat it in the standard?
Go ahead, Sybil.
I just have one quick question, silly question. Is alongshore one word in dock?
Where's Longshore?
Extends the
That's-
longshore.
That's a mistake.
No, okay.
Different.
I think.
I thought you were talking about a longshoreman, which is,
That's
which is an occupation.
Is that one word?
That's,
what I
Yes.
think it is.
Yes, it is.
yeah, it's either a longshoreman or along the shore, along the shore. That's just the typographic.
Not that big.
Okay, so anyway, Mike,
Under home occupation.
so if we
you
have
there?
the definition, then why is never mind, leave it. It's just one paragraph.
Okay.
You would think over in the standards would say where permitted per to see the definition or whatever instead of retyping the whole thing again, but okay.
All right, moving on.
Yep.
Again, under home occupation, when I read the definition, I'm puzzled, and I'll read my note. Does this mean that a daycare facility can't have any outside employees?
That's what it. If I recall, that's what it says.
Now, if you have a daycare facility, and we're saying that they're appropriate, it only can be the residents that live in the house that can work there.
That's right.
You can't bring in the teenager next door to help you during
That's
the day.
correct. Yep.
Okay. So I'm correct that you cannot have any outside employees.
That's right.
That don't reside in the house.
That's right. Unless you added I mean, some ordinances have what are called a home daycare facility that specifically has a separate provision, but that'd be
All
your
right, that's going to
preference.
keep the daycare facility small, and maybe that's what we want.
It's a matter of policy preference in each local government.
Under hot tub,
Well, let's think about this because I know the daycare facility that's run out of the home that my niece uses.
is it in
Be-
town here?
No, but it's exactly like what something could happen here. She has to hire because there's a special needs student in her daycare population. She has to bring in, and I don't know if North Carolina has these kind of laws, but she has to bring in someone that's licensed to deal with a special need student.
So here, if that were to be the case, then the owner of the daycare would automatically know that they cannot take special needs students or whatever else that would necessitate having an employee at their
Okay.
home.
Okay.
All right, under hot tubs, just a housekeeping word. in the middle of the definition, we say, and water circulating equipment are an integral part. It's an integral part of the structure.
Is that a typo?
It's just a typo, yeah.
So I see it was in 2/1/2016 when all the hot tub language was put in.
Okay, you just saw the note there? Okay. On the last page, outdoor displays. All that's been answered to me. I did my notes. And under outdoor storage, that's been answered to me too. Swimming pools, any above ground, the definition, any above ground or in-ground pool suitable for swimming. I wrote my
That should
note,
be
what
your
about
existing
wading?
definition.
A wading pool. What about putting in gallonage? I don't know. I don't know that this definition does anything. I don't know that this definition serves a purpose. You can drown in 2 inches of water. So.
Sure. We can provide a depth if you would like. Let me see. I
I think the gallonage is already taken care of on setbacks because somebody can only make a pool that'll fit and where it'll fit.
So would you like to add a depth? I mean, what?
Well, what does the planning board think? This swimming pool definition here doesn't mean anything to me. An above ground or in-ground pool suitable for swimming.
Doesn't even say it has water in it technically.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. Using the suitable for swimming differentiates it from a koi pond or something like that.
Well, there are pools that you basically blow them up, fill them with water, and they
Well,
can
that's
be
just-
3 or 4 feet deep. Not huge, but now do you require that person to do all of the safety measures, fencing, etc.?
What would be
Then that would.
It depends on the situation, but
I
no,
mean,
because it's above ground and
there's
typically
got
it's
to
its
be an
own
acceptable definition of swimming pool out there in the
We can look at
world.
We can look. I can look at adding some further
what's-
language.
Yeah, I mean, there's
For
got to
this.
be. I mean, it's not like we're
Got
trying
it.
to define something.
Yeah.
There's got to be a recommended or acceptable definition.
I
of
know
swimming
with
pool.
CR1 with Palm Cove, we put in a gallonage
Mhm.
when we agreed to those 4-to-1 and we agreed to other things. I don't know where that gallonage came from. I remember when I was on the
Council. Yep.
I
Yeah.
was on the Board of Adjustment.
Oh, the Board of Adjustment. Got it. You can have that one.
All right, Wes is going to look at the
Yeah.
swimming pool definition to see what he can do to provide something that's a little bit better. Because we still, folks, have another bite at this apple.
Take that top.
And I'm making margin notes as we go
Yeah.
through. So when he gives us a completed
That's right.
section,
Oh,
I'm
you
just
got
going to
the
go back to my notes and say, was everything covered?
Yeah.
And even if we missed something and forgot about it, we can still add it at that point. We're never
Indeed.
saying that we're done
That's right. Until you're done.
until
Yeah.
we're done.
You don't
Yeah.
think-
So you have residential use portion of the table, and then a certain segment of the non-residential uses. You guys can see how long this took just on this accessory uses. So hopefully, we make good progress at our next meeting. I can tell you, as I told Pete when I walked in the door here, there is more work that has been done that is shown there, but I don't want to provide you modified sections of the table without having the completed use standards to accompany them. Otherwise, you'll be confused. So, and then the other thing is there are new definitions that are provided, and some of those definitions coincide with things further down in the use table that are not in there, but just wanted to go ahead and give them to you just for your reference so you could start looking at them. You'll see also there's a number of uses that have been deleted. Just withhold, if it's a question, let me know. But what is likely occurring is that's going to be consolidated into another category of uses. So for example, if you see accounting office that was deleted, I don't know if that's one that, there's going to be an office general. And there's a number of, for example, shoe store, candy store, similar retail items are all going to fall under retail general. That's right. So,
And that's appropriate.
yeah. And other than that, as Pete alluded to, this is all a work in progress, and we'll keep it on until we're done. And we have to, I believe, till January to close out Article 3. So what that means, well, for me to sort of get that delivered to you all is we'll have the development standards, which is landscaping, parking, etc. And sorry, I wanted to look at the schedule here. Excuse me.
I'm looking at it now, and I still say we're ahead of schedule. It's
Okay. Yeah, so we'll have, in November, my goal is to have the remainder of the table to you and all of the associated use standards and potentially the dimensional standards. And then that gives December through January to provide the remainder of the parking, trees, landscaping, and lighting.
Is this the end of Article 3?
No, sir.
There's more.
Right.
There's more.
And this meeting is the 17th?
Yes,
Okay.
November.
November
That-
17th.
Yeah, make sure I got that on mine
I know it's a
correctly.
week. It's exactly a week before Thanksgiving. Is that a conflict with anybody?
And then we'll be through.
We have and for the record, our next planning board meeting is November 3rd, a regular
Correct.
meeting, which
Yep.
will be a nice full meeting. And then the
Yeah.
17th of November, 9 a.m. will be the next UDO special meeting.
Yes.
And the third meeting is still at 9 a.m., correct?
Yes.
Maybe.
All right,
Right on time.
At my calendar.
got some nice homework here. Wes, good job.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, as we look at a couple minutes before 11, strategically, the next item is public comments, and seeing no visitors present, there will be no public comments. I'd like to, and we've stated for the record that the next regular planning board meeting will be Thursday, November 3rd at 9 a.m. here in council chambers. And the next special UDO revision meeting, continuation of today's meeting, or the next step of today's meeting, is the 17th of November, 9 a.m. here in council chambers. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
We have a second.
I second.
All in favor? Aye.